Hello, and welcome back to plantcare.club, where we care about your plants. My name is Fred.
My name is Maddie.
And on this show, we do three things. We talk about your plants, we will do product reviews, and we answer your questions. So if you have any questions, go to plantcare.club and fill out the question form. And you can send in pictures from there as well, and we can answer your question either over email or on the show. So the background to the show is we both grew up on a greenhouse farm. We grow annuals, poinsettias, garden mums, and then we have a nursery in Homestead, Florida as well, where we grow a bunch of tropical plants. The goal of the show is to take all the information that I have in the greenhouse and try to distill that down into something that you can take away and apply to the plants at your own home. Right?
Yeah.
You say that right?
Yeah.
Beauty.
Exactly.
Now, we're siblings, so Maddie is involved in the greenhouse, but not as in depth. So she can kind of ask questions if we're going off topic, or if we're saying something that's a little bit like, more in depth. She can say, hey, wait a minute, explain that topic a little bit better.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That's what I'm here to do, is just kind of bring it back to layman's terms so we can understand how to apply it to your home.
And keep it flowing, because it's more boring when it's just me.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm sure that it is.
Very monotone.
Okay, so the plan for today is we're going to talk about which spring plants have worked well in our own gardens, garden beds, on the patio, in potted plants, that kind of a thing. We did this before for indoor houseplants, right?
Yeah.
So then the idea was, hey, let's do this again for outdoor as well. We have it broken down into 3 different sections. What did well, what did okay, and what did not do very well.
Yep.
Okay. So first off, Maddie, explain where you've got plants. Explain that situation. What's it like? Light, fertilizer, all that kind of stuff.
So plants that I'm going to be talking about are going to be more so from actually our family home. So I would say mostly light. Like, you're going to get most sun during the day in those and we have front and side garden beds around the house. So those are going to be pretty much all sun all day. And we also have little garden beds as well that are kind of in our backyard lawn, which are full sun all day as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the main spots, as well as maybe on like our back deck. Again, mostly sun. Maybe a little bit of shade, but it's pretty much sun all day.
Mm-hmm. Fertilizer. Now, I will say the situation at the house is about as ideal as it gets, because the plants don't have to travel in a vehicle to get there. They can just go straight from in the greenhouse right outside to the house. So there's no damage from that. We can pick the best ones, obviously, because it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
We get to do all the trials there. So any new material, like different varieties or genetics that are coming through the line, we'll trial that on our own deck. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And fertilizer. So the fertilizer actually comes from the greenhouse. There's a system that's set up so the fertilizer that we use in the greenhouse can be applied to the same plants at the house. And obviously that's about as good as it gets. Like, that's commercial grade fertilizer. So if the plants don't survive there, if they don't do well, then they're not very good.
Yeah, but it's a good trial, because then we know if they're not going to survive in our backyard, they're not going to survive in someone else's backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly.
Great. Okay, so at my house, it's a little bit different. I don't bring home fertilizer, so I don't fertilize at all. At the beginning of the season in the garden bed, like in the actual garden where we have tomatoes and cucumbers and that kind of a thing, I'll fertilize there a bit, like with slow release fertilizer. But outside of that, don't use any fertilizer. We have a well, so there's some minerals in the water that we're going to be using. As far as watering goes, it's pretty sporadic. So you're going to notice that on my list, some of the items that didn't do as well are items that take more care and attention. And the ones that did very well are ones that are drought resistant. I don't need to be there all the time. We can just forget about them.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And they can get a lot of the water that they need from the actual soil in the garden bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, you go first. Do your what did well. Well,
Yes.
do you want to do well first, or do you want to do not well?
Let's do not well first. And I'm going to give you a caveat first because with the kind of section, I failed to think of good things that came in the kind of section. So Fred's going to pull the weight there. But let's go for the not so well section. So to be honest, with how ideal it is at the greenhouse and at our house, not a lot of plants do horribly there. It's only if we're doing shade plants because we have so much sun there. So, for example, coleus wouldn't do so well. We did do coleus once in some of the garden beds and they failed pretty miserably because it was just way too much sun and basically fried them. But that's like a big part of it was sun versus shade. So any of those like shade plants did horribly or don't do as well. As well as I would also consider this as not so well using colors that don't match. Can we consider that? This isn't necessarily like a growing one, but I found it kind of almost like a fail when, for example, you pull out a chrysanthemum thinking it's one color and it turns out to be another color. And when it doesn't match with the rest of them, you can tell it kind of looks off. And then, so we've had some of those pairings before too that do not so well, but that's because we have such an ideal situation at our greenhouse. We don't usually have plants that do horribly, that don't function horribly. Yeah.
Can I make one note? I think with the coleus too, those were earlier strains.
Yeah.
That were shade. Coleus, I think, used to be a bit more shade loving, but most of the coleus in the market now are direct sun.
Oh, really?
So if we tried that again, I think that it would be a little bit of a different
situation,
a different outcome. Maybe. Also, though, I know that something we forgot to mention, the soil at the greenhouse is on much more clay based. So it's not as well draining, and the soil actually by the end of the summer can kind of get like crusty, and it's really more clay than anything else.
Yeah.
So that's probably why coleus doesn't do as well, because their root system isn't as strong.
Yeah.
And it's not able to bust through all that clay.
Yeah.
Versus at my house, it's basically sand. Like it drains very well, very easily. It doesn't hold as much. I have to put more like clumping agents and actually bring some more soil home, because if not, this water just runs right through it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. So let's hear what didn't work so well here.
So you've got coleus. That's on your list. Coleus is basically what you got.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about your list anymore. If I think of anything else that didn't do as well at the greenhouse, like there are always specific different varieties within a new trial that haven't done very well, but overall things do pretty well.
They end up doing
okay well. I have mint, herbs, lavender, and petunia. So we've done all of these at our place. The commonality between all of these is that they want more water. The mint, herbs, and lavender were all in pots versus being actually in the garden. So they came a little bit late, and they didn't do very well. I don't think my wife was using the mint and the herbs as much, because if she was, she would complain more about it. But yeah, they weren't really going anywhere. The lavender, at the same time, it was kind of put into a spot that was far away from a hose, so it didn't get much water. It looked pretty good for a couple of weeks, and then after that, it started to go downhill once we didn't get as much rain. And the petunias, they got fried really quick. There were some cool different varieties. Like there's more bicolor flowers now. So brought one or two of those home, and they didn't last very long. But that's when you buy a petunia, you know that's the point.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
In my opinion, if you're going to the store, you're buying a petunia, unless you're there to take really good care of it, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna go again because I've got the plants did okay.
Yeah.
So I got Dorianthus, which also is mesoplant. Actually, I should be looking these up at the same time.
Yeah.
Dorianthus.
Oh, okay.
Dorianthus plant. So sort of like a succulent. They do really well in they can take a drought. They can take not being watered for a few weeks. The only problem is if they don't get enough space. In order to really start out, they need a little bit more space to fill out a spot. But once they really get going and they have a good root system, they'll grow very quickly.
Interesting. Okay.
So Dorianthus actually in our flower bed didn't do as well because I don't think I gave them enough space really. Coleus as well. Coleus, same issue. It didn't get watered often enough, but it got watered enough that it didn't die right away. So I've got it in an okay camp because it's sort of just right down the middle of the road.
It was just more difficult to manage, basically.
Yeah, ooh, Coleus Black Dragon. Let's look that up.
Cool.
That looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of these brand new varieties that they, as far as putting them in your garden bed, they can take off. I've seen a little bit of a difference between the different, like, is it a landscape variety or is it a small variety? You can see a small difference there, but by the end of the summer, even if you're using a small variety, it can get big and look great.
Oh, they look so good when they can grow. And the best part about Coleus is that you don't have to go through and pick out dead flowers. Like, there's no issues with that. And you can still get color in your garden bed as well.
They do flower, though.
Yeah, they do flower a little bit, but I don't find that you don't have to go through and pick through them like a geranium, for example.
Oh, no. You're not going to do that.
No, even if they do flower, it like falls off and it still doesn't look.
They'll flower usually by the end of the summer. If they're happy, they'll be flowering then.
Nice.
And then I've got Garden Mums on my list. Garden Mums, obviously a classic. They haven't done as well, mainly because I put them in the not done as well because I haven't done them every year. Even though we have them at the greenhouse, we've like there's ample supply. It's just maybe out of lack of desire or because the summer beds are still doing okay. Yeah. When you get into the fall, it's like, well, do I really want to rip all this out, put in Garden Mums, wait 6 weeks, and then take that out as well?
And what's tricky where we are as well, it seems like the summer heat can kind of keep those summer flowers that you've been growing for so long so nice deep into the fall. And then if you do switch over to chrysanthemums, you have them for 3-4 weeks, it feels like, and then it's too cold and they get frostbite and then they're done.
Yeah, eventually it gets really cold then. And the problem with that too is, like, if you take your summer plants out, you're going to take them out at like October, like late September, early October.
Yeah.
Which in our area, okay, that's fine. If you put in Garden Mums around that time, you're taking those out like on a relatively warm day, which is going to be 2 degrees Celsius in November.
Yeah.
Like, or 1st of December. Like, that's when you're going to get yourself outside and they're not going to look nice. And then it's just cold and yuck and not a lot of fun.
If you're dedicated, you can get those Garden Mums in and have them looking really, really good. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky where we are.
So maybe poor Garden Mums, it's not their fault. They didn't do anything. I just have them on the okay because I don't get too revved up about planting them.
Yeah, that's the thing about any of these plants is that if you have the right location, the right space, and the right shading or sun, they will thrive. It's just they didn't work out so well.
Well, maybe I should have just left them in the pots.
That's true.
That could have been the easiest way, is just leave it in the pot. And I've done that a few years where just leave it in the pot by the step. That's probably the easiest. Maybe that's what everyone listening is going to say.
Yeah, just
leave it right there. Yeah, you don't have to do more.
Exactly.
Okay, you go for it with what did well.
All right, what does well? Number one that does amazing at our house is dragon wings. If you want to look those ones up. But every year we do dragon wings actually around the whole house in the garden beds. Yeah, begonias. And they get huge. They get so big actually that they'll start to block our windows when you're trying to look out. But I think that they look amazing. They spread and they grow so well and so big. And we actually get compliments every year about them too. Like, the whole house just looks very red and vibrant. So that was number one on my list.
Can I say something quick here?
Absolutely.
So dragon wings come from seed.
Yeah.
And these are all planted into a 4-inch pot. Now, if you go to a store, there are we see it sometimes where they will do dragon wings in a 10-inch hanging basket or in patio pots, which for the grower, these dragon wings will grow really quickly. And it's a relatively low cost filler that you can put into your pot. Fills out a bunch of space. It gets a little bit of color on it. As long as you can sell it within a short window, you're fine. The problem is they can grow so quickly.
Oh yeah.
That you have that really short window of time to sell them. So we do them in a 4-inch straight into the garden bed. Totally fine. Everything works out there. But I feel bad for people that buy one of these in a 10-inch pot.
Oh yeah.
And they think, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to have this all the way through the summer. in 3 or 4 weeks, if you take care of it, it is going to be enormous.
Huge.
Well, and then it's going to split.
Yeah.
Then it's going to fall apart, and you might have to like pinch it here and there to keep it at a relative size. So it's just
That's
a
true.
hard thing to do.
I actually do recommend, like, if you buy it in a pot, to have the intention of planting it in a garden bed, because I do notice that
Yep.
too. If you're going to keep it in a pot, it's going to split, usually, if they get that big. Any plant does that. If it gets too big, it's going to probably split. Not any plant, I should say, like spring garden plants. But yeah, if you have the intention of buying one of those, plant it in a garden bed, plant it in the ground so that it doesn't do something like that.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, as far as I know, there's really only like a few main genetics, and they're all like big. Wow,
Massive.
They grow quickly, so these are tough to control. Okay, I railroaded you. Keep going.
No, that's okay. I actually put chrysanthemums in our top list as well. We do put them in. I'd say pretty relatively late into the season, but they grow pretty quickly, and it adds a nice like fall color. So that's something to consider for like in your end of summer season. Another thing that we do is peonies. Every year in our side garden beds, we have peonies, and those are, I know they come back every year, but they always come back and they're amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, those are perennials. Yeah. Okay,
they're perennials. Sorry, guys, I skipped on to perennials. But yeah, those ones, I was gonna say, peonies and tulips actually both come back really, really amazing. But those are some that are in our backyard that come back every year, and every year they look amazing. So it works out. And another big one that I wanted to list too is cannas. We always have cannas on our back deck, and every year I shouldn't say every year. Maybe there's been a year or two where they don't grow very tall, but they will be very tall, like 5 feet high, and they'll be in a 14-inch patio pot with some other plants as well. They always do really well, and they always look so beautiful on the back deck as well. Yeah.
Cannas fall into that same category I mentioned with the dragonwing begonias, because a grower can put one of these cannas in as the center of a patio pot. And that's fun. That's great. And it's, as I said before, it's lower cost.
Yeah.
You put it in there and then it grows, and it'll flower at the top. It'll give you the right show. The problem is they grow so quickly. Like in the spring, if you have enough sunlight, they'll grow an inch a day.
Yeah.
Like they will grow so quickly. And if you don't stay on top of it, soon you can go from, I have 4 shelves on this shipping cart that's going to the store. And if those cannas keep growing, I only have 3 shelves.
Yeah.
And then I only have 2 shelves.
Yeah.
And you think about the cost of trucking for every single one of those shelf reductions.
Yeah.
That just takes money right out of the grower's pocket. So cannas are great in some ways, where like if you have them if they're already at your home, they put on such a great show.
Oh yeah.
On the grower side, it can be a little bit of a gamble. Your timing has to be perfect. Your sales have to be right in line to move those out right away.
Yeah, that's something really interesting to consider. Is like when we're putting them on the carts, they all have to be even, and they all have to fit within a certain shelf. And if it doesn't, basically it's not shippable. Like basically we're not selling that plant, which is a downside, but
yeah,
in a way. But like, yeah, they have to be a certain size in order for us to ship them. So they might be great when they get to the garden center and they've been there for, even if they're there for a week and they've grown, it's fine for a customer, but for a grower, that can't happen basically.
Yeah, like if you can get it into your own car, that's fine. From the garden center. It's the grower side that when you're making your pricing, you're baking in all of the different pieces, like your pot, your soil, your plant cost, your labor, heat, whatever you're putting in, and shipping is one of them. And shipping is such an important one because it's very expensive to move the plants to one spot. So
definitely.
when you reduce the amount of plants that could be on a single rack, that changes immediately the economics of all those different pieces.
Oh yeah.
And that comes right out of your bottom line.
Definitely.
Before we do mine, what's that game where it's Boggle? Boggle's the game. Yeah. So when if you ever played Boggle, like you shake up all the letters and then you set it down and then you're making words with it, and everyone's racing to see who can make the longest list.
Yeah, of words, yeah.
And then you cross out a word. Like if I have a word on my list and you have the same one, then we cross it out.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking when you were saying your list, because I'm like, I would say more things from your house that weren't on your list.
Well, I see one on your list that I didn't say.
But luckily, like our Boggle list did not overlap.
We never crossed over. I did have one of those written down, but I saw it and I didn't want to take it on you.
Oh, so. You did?
Yeah.
Okay, well then it's Black Eyed Susan. For sure, that's exactly what it is.
Susan, yeah.
Black Eyed Susan does so well at both of our homes. the benefit of a black-eyed Susan is it'll grow so well together
Mhm.
and just continue to produce all the way through the entire summer. And then by the end of it, you can create like a wall. We both do these trellises of them.
Yeah.
So it creates kind of we have it on the side of the house right by the barbecue. So you can't see the road. You can't see this and that from there. And no one is going to, it works as more of a hedge. Exactly what you see right here.
Yeah.
In southern states, like down in Florida and that kind of a thing, you're going to see, they'll have like bougainvillea walls
Okay.
because they have the right temperature for it. Mandevilla once in a while. I don't think I've really seen black-eyed Susan as much, but a lot of those different vines, even like ivy, like English ivy, not the genetics of English ivy, but a similar one.
Yeah.
I've seen those on across walls or fences, hedges, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I mean, we actually use it on the back of our deck as a kind of a way of privacy because it's that gate for the first bit of the summer. Obviously, it's not grown in enough, but by August, it's so thick and so full, you can't see through it. And it does add like a really cool layer of privacy so people can't.
Black-eyed Susan, I think the reason that you don't see it as much is because it doesn't flower as often at a younger stage, and they are so hard to root.
Oh.
That has been, so if you get in the cuttings of black-eyed Susan, most growers will tell you that like 50% of them will root. You get like a 50% root rate versus there are other varieties that you get as close to 100% as you can think. So if you only get a 50% rate, then you have to build that into your pricing, and they grow a little bit more slowly, and suddenly you have the cost of the plant that goes up a lot. But when a customer is buying from the garden center, it might not look like it's worth that value.
I see. So if someone's like very interested in this, they want to get one, what size of a black-eyed Susan would you suggest to get so that you know like for sure it's rooted and it's ready to go?
Oh, like if you get it in a 10-inch pot,
yeah,
you're in a good spot. Like a 6-inch pot would do well.
Okay.
You're probably going to see it on a trellis.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go with that. I think that this is a great like sleeper plant, like not as many people are going to know about it because it's not as widespread.
Yeah.
And it's not as common at garden centers. But if you buy this, put it into your
like
garden bed. Yeah. In trellis or something like that. It's going to do really well. One small note. If you are buying black-eyed Susan, make sure you're buying the annual varieties, not the perennial.
Okay.
The last homeowner at our place bought the perennial varieties. And I have been fighting this plant since the day we moved in. It's been like 4 years. Last year, I took all the dirt completely out of our garden beds, dug down like 1.5 feet and put all fresh soil in there, and still they come around.
Maybe that's a plus for somebody. Maybe if someone wants a plant like that they don't have to keep rebuying.
They're just so intense. Yeah. They're so aggressive that if you have your annual variety and the perennial variety, like the perennial will just take over.
Yeah, and then if you ever want to do anything else, the perennial's always going to take over.
And they don't flower as much. Oh. They focus on growing rather than flowering, and so they'll just keep on going and going, and it can be very frustrating. So be careful if you're using black-eyed Susan. Annual varieties, not the perennial. Take it from me. Don't. If you do the perennial, you're stuck. Like it's coming back every year.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I have Lantana and Mandevilla. Lantana was the first thing that I had on the screen actually when we started. Mandevilla I've shown here a million times, so I'm sure that we all know what that looks like. But Lantana, Mandevilla, what's the commonality between the two of them is they both flower and they're pretty hardy, drought resistant. They don't need as much attention. They're easy.
Yeah.
They're easy plants.
I completely agree with that. Lantana is a very interesting one too. It comes with a lot of different like color varieties, as you can already see. But you don't just get one single color. You'll get a pink and a yellow, or you can get purple and yellow. Like you can get lots of different coloring options if that's something you're looking for in your backyard. Mandevilla as well, but not as many coloring options, I would say. There's like pink, white, red. I think there's a purple.
Red, white, pink.
Yeah.
There's a purple now, which apparently is okay as far as the genetics go. There's a peach and a yellow. And so far on this date, I would say the peach and the yellow are no buenos. But that is, like, we'll get through the spring and we'll see how they really go. But as far as I'm hearing, the growth habits on those are not as nice. Now that's the Mandevilla, the trellis, versus the Diplademia bush. The yellow variety in the Diplademia is more hardy, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I guess that's something to know too. This one's more of a bush. Like this is, you're going to get in you can plant it in your garden beds though. Whereas Mandevilla, there's two different kinds. There's the bush and there's a trellis for if you want that crawling plant, just like the black-eyed Susan like we were talking about.
Now, if you are a little bit further south than us, both Lantana and Mandevilla are really common down there. The Mandevilla, I don't think I have to talk too much more about because I'm sure you've seen it. The Lantana, though, they can be grown in direct sun and outdoors, so they get a little bit more hardy, and they almost, maybe they kind of resemble like our garden mums up here. Down there, they can have a Lantana that's not as hardy. You're not going to, toss it on its side and stand it back up and it'll look fine, but it does have a more woody center to it.
You can kind of see it on the leaf right there too, even this one. Sorry. You can kind of see how like thick and hardy that plant is, like with the leaf and stuff. Yeah.
And if they set it outside, it's going to be blown around. It's going to get more direct sunlight. It's going to have, like, maybe it falls over for a day. It gets stood back up. So it's going to get that hardy outside. But you don't see these as often in the further north you go, because it becomes more and more expensive to grow a Lantana standard and then ship it up north. But
that's really cool.
They are very cool, where you can have a single Lantana growing up, and then you pinch the top, you strip all the side leaves off, and then the head bushes out.
Yeah.
And you basically have a Lantana tree. It looks more like a tree than anything else.
Yeah, it's really cool. Look, it reminds me of the ficus standard. It's very cool.
Yes, exactly, just like that.
Very cool. I like that.
Awesome. Okay, that's all that I've got. That's all that we have for today. If you guys have any questions, head over to plantcare.club and fill out our question form. We can answer it there. Until next time, that's all we got, right?
Yeah, that's all we've got. If you've got questions about any of your plants, if it's dying, you're not sure what's going on, send us photos. We're happy to help you out.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.